This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. This episode is about Prohibition era and the tragic story of John Wales' land. The Mississippi Black Belt region of the 1930s represented a complex tapestry of agricultural struggle, racial tension, and economic desperation. Wales' land, as he was known, his story unfolds against a backdrop of extreme poverty rates exceeding 60% in rural counties like Lowndes County, a cotton-based agricultural economy in severe decline, systemic racial segregation and economic oppression, limited social mobility for small-scale farmers. The average farm size in this era was 40 to 60 acres, and the typical annual income was between $275 and $400. The unemployment rates were as high as 40% during the Great Depression. Subsistence farming was a primary survival strategy. This was the time in which Wales' land was living. Wales' land embodied the archetypal small farmer, hardworking, unassuming, and deeply rooted in the agricultural traditions of his family and the American South. He farmed with his father and the sharecroppers who worked the land beside them. The Great Depression and Prohibition era had transformed the quiet rural community into complex battlegrounds of legal enforcement and social tensions and economic survival in Mississippi during that era. Poverty rates were high due to the South's inability to recover from the economic destruction of post-Civil War South and the Great Depression. The South had limited economic opportunities beyond agriculture, and the widespread economic desperation drove underground economies like moonshining and tiger dens and speakeasies. Prohibition, enacted through the 18th Amendment in 1920, had dramatically reshaped social dynamics in the country. While urban centers like Chicago saw organized crime flourish, rural communities like Lowndes County and Columbus experienced more nuanced transformations. Prohibition represented more than a simple alcohol ban. It was a profound social experiment with devastating consequences. The 18th Amendment enforcement created unprecedented legal tension. Rural communities bore disproportionate enforcement burdens, especially in the South. Federal agents operated with minimal accountability. Lower power structures were dramatically reshaped by corrupt officials and a corrupt legal system, and of course the plethora of bootleggers who were paying off said police and said legal system, including lawyers and judges. Over 70% of the enforcement actions targeted rural communities. It's estimated that 500,000 illegal distilleries operated nationwide by 1930, but there was minimal prosecution of the wealthy, connected alcohol producers of that time. Columbus was no different. Federal prohibition agents, often poorly trained and minimally supervised, wielded significant and sometimes arbitrary power. But Columbus and Lowndes County were ripe with illegal untaxed liquor and some federal agents with itchy palms. This leads us to the fateful day of May 8, 1931. This was no different than any other May morning. Preparing the fields, planting gardens, and caring for livestock was in full swing for Wales' land and his tenant farmers. By mid-morning, the arrival of three alleged prohibition agents, Wiley Wright, Henry Furr, and D.J. Hendricks, shifted the bucolic work scene to one of suspicion and unease. According to the agents, Wales' land began to advance toward them from his fields and allegedly had a pistol stuck in his belt. The agents reported feeling an immediate threat, and at least 2 shots were fired in, quote, self-defense. Wales was shot in the shoulder and heart. He lay dead on the dirt. The agents wrapped his body in a blanket and left Wales on his father's porch. The agents then left to report the death to Sheriff Williams. The 3 agents were eventually arrested and indicted by a grand jury. But the murder charges were rapidly dismissed based on eyewitness testimonies of 2 black men who allegedly sharecropped on the land property. The men swore that Land had a pistol in his hand, not in his belt, as the agents testified. The men were all acquitted based on the testimony of these two black men. Were the men coerced? Who were the eyewitnesses who gave testimony? Were they bribed by the federal government? Rumors abounded in the community for years afterwards that not only had the men been bribed, but so had the judges. Wales had absolutely no documented criminal history, past or present. He had no proven connection to illegal alcohol trade. Rapid legal exoneration of the agents is an interesting event in the record books. Perhaps more interesting is the high cost of the Prohibition era on the U.S. as a whole, not just on the Land family. It is estimated that 1,500 civilians were killed during the enforcement due to limited accountability for law enforcement. Federal agents operating with minimal oversight and the plethora of weapons available to most citizens created a community of fear and mistrust and the normalization of state-sanctioned violence. Wales Land's story transcends a singular incident, his death, representing a microcosm of broader societal tensions during a tumultuous period of American history. He is buried in Lot 555 in Friendship Cemetery in Columbus, Mississippi. He was just 27 years old, and he left behind his wife Augusta and his unborn son. To read more about this Prohibition era and to learn more about Prohibition's impact in Mississippi, I recommend Prohibition's Hidden Victims by Dr. Eleanor Richards, Rule Resistance During the Prohibition Era, and the archival records at Mississippi State. Until next time.